Secretarial Commission on the Indian Trust Commission, Administration and Reform. Does everybody have an agenda? Or you kind of already know what's going on? I'll just be brief on the agenda here. We're here for 2 to 3:30, and it's an opportunity to hear from the tribal perspective on the trust responsibility. So I'll give some comments. Fred Fox is our oil and gas director. He's here. And he'll give a... Fred, are you going to do a PowerPoint?
Yes, we're going to do a PowerPoint with our royalties.
Okay. And then Steve Gunderson. Steve is here, right?
Yes, sir.
Steve back there. He's doing auditing for our royalties. So Steve will give his presentation. I don't think, is John Fredericks here, attorney? I'll put a question mark here, then it has confirmed down here. And then Mark Fox, our tax director, is he here? I'll put a question mark there. He was at the agency this morning when we were there. And then Tom Well, is Tom here? Tom Well is here. Okay, there's Tom, and then Renita. Yeah, there's Renita. We'll go back to them for their presentation on oil and gas, and then we'll have some Q&A after that, and then we have Kathy Martinez. Kathy's over here from Honor, from Denver. Jamie Connell, our BLM director, regional director. Jamie's here, right there. Here's Jamie. How about Don Judas? Is Don here? The Dickinson office. There's Don. Tim LaPointe. There's Tim, acting regional director, BIA. Earl Silk, our superintendent. Austin Gillette, OST. What's around? He's probably around somewhere. And then Jeff Hunt, there's Jeff, our petroleum engineer. So they will come up and kind of form a panel and then take Q&A. So if there's any questions about any of these processes regarding trust transactions, I think, be it oil and gas or grazing. I know we talked a lot about oil and gas, but there's other transactions of trust that occur. And then finally, we'll hear from the Latte organizations. There's Donna Morgan from Crowspire High. There she is, representing the Elders organization. And Karen Rabbithead, is Karen here? Karen will represent another landowner association. And then Pete Hale. Is Pete here? He's hiding behind his papers and his cowboy hat. He'll finish up, and then they'll depart at 3:45. Okay. Commissioners, can you raise your hand? I'm going to, Jamie from my office is going to hand out.
Also from our office too, Chairman, we're going to give them a report.
Okay, great. And I think we got a few extra copies if maybe Jamie. Jamie, give it to Jamie. And probably Honor, Jamie, over here with Kathy. Before I begin, I'd like to, Chairwoman Fawn Sharp, I'd like to start with you if the commissioners would stand up and introduce themselves and that sort of thing.
Thank you. On behalf of the Commission, my name is Fawn Sharp. I'm Chair of the Trust Commission. I also serve as President of the Quinault Indian Nation and President of the Affiliated Tribes of the Northwest Indians, which is an area that represents tribes in a 7-state region. So on behalf of the Commission, thank you for hosting us and thank you for your hospitality today.
My name is Pete Zaw. I'm the past chairman of the Navajo Nation, also the president of the Navajo Nation. recently I've been working over at Arizona State University as a director of the American Indian Program. And I too would like to thank you all for hosting us today. And you have some big, huge development here on your land. And it's just really quite something just to have the experience of visiting what's happening here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zahn, Chairwoman Sharp. We do have a couple other commissioners, Robert Anderson and Robert's from where? Seattle? Seattle, and Stacy Leeds from what, Oklahoma? Oklahoma City? Oklahoma City. So they'll be at the hearing, the public hearing tomorrow and Friday at the Ramco, starting at 8 a.m. And then we also have Lizzie, if you'd stand up, and we'll have the other federal officials introduce themselves.
I'm Lizzie Marsters. I am Chief of Staff to the Deputy Secretary, David Hayes, at the Department of Interior. And it's also a privilege and an honor to serve as the designated federal official in the town. And thank you, Chairman Hall, for hosting us today. It's been a terrific day thus far, so it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Lizzie. Jamie?
Good afternoon. I'm Jamie Connell. I'm the State Director for the Bureau of Land Management. I'm stationed out of the Billings office, but I have responsibilities for all of Montana and Northeast Africa.
Kathy?
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Martinez. I'm with the Office of Natural Resources and Revenue. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here this afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim LaPointe from the Deputy Regional Director of Trust Services for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Great Plains Regional Office. Thank you.
Austin?
Austin Gillette, Fiduciary Trust Officer for the Virtual Agency here in Newtown.
Richard LaFromboise, Trust Officer for Turtle Mountain and Spirit Lake.
I called you Jiggers and you said Richard.
Richard Jiggers LaFromboise.
Two former chairmen, these guys, so I have to kind of tease them. Anybody else? Did I get? Yes. Kevin.
Good afternoon. Brian Rice, Deputy Bureau Director for Trust Services out of DCBIA.
Mark Davis, Senior Advisor to the Principal Deputy Special Trustee in the Office of Special Trustee.
Jeff?
Hello, everybody. Jeff Hunt, Problem Engineer, Energy and Minerals, Indian Affairs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Earl Stokes, Superintendent, agency.
Okay. I'll go up here then. I'll have Arnie Strauss introduce himself and Judy Blue, council members.
Okay, Arnold Strauss, West Segment Council Representative, Landry.
Good afternoon, everyone. Judy Brew, Fort Myers Council Representative.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And Arnie and Judy, Jamie will get a couple of copies for you. I'll begin and I'll be, I'm going to limit myself to about 5 minutes here because, in Congress, when you testify, they give you 5 minutes and they put a red light on you. That means you have to be quiet after when it turns red. But council members are really appreciative of the opportunity here to have the Indian Trust Commission, all of the staff, all of the departments and agencies that go from development to production on the various trust transactions. So they toured the Fort Berthold Agency, and Earl Silk and Tom Wells and Renita Holland-Wolf and staff, Austin Gillette. We went through all of the leases, the right-of-ways, the commissions, the surveys. We wanted to have the commission get a kind of a flavor of the number of transactions that are occurring daily, on a daily basis. So I'm hoping that it was fruitful. And they actually came off from after lunch. Was it after lunch you did a tour, Lizzie? They toured a well rig site, just probably in Fort Myers here. Is that right, Fred?
It was a well site from Petro Hunt.
Okay, Petro Hunt. And I don't know, is Jeff Herman here? Jeff, why don't you stand up and introduce yourself? You hosted today on that well tour.
Jeff Herman, I'm Regional Land Manager for Petro-Hunt out of Bismarck.
Thanks a lot, Jeff, for allowing us to tour your rig there. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to get going before the light gets red on me. In the first paragraph of this presentation, Commission members and all of the staff and ladies and gentlemen, we wanted to just lay out the magnitude of the Bakken. As Commissioner Zaw had talked about, you know, we now see that this is really a big development. And this development has put our tribe at the #1 oil-producing tribe in the U.S. right now. And so we're talking about it. We're talking about with this kind of an oil boom, there's a consequence. And that is, of course, damage to our roads, the environment. And so we put in a number of regulatory items that I talked about. The environmental code for intentional or accidental dumping, traffic and safety, that allows, as I mentioned, and council members, I also talked about how Fred Poitras, our Game and Fish Director, right out of Newtown, led the way. So there was a Game and Fish, Terrell, and tribal law enforcement that had arrested and cited a trucker with no license plates, well, expired plates, expired insurance, and no Terrell license on their window. And so they pulled him over, fined him $600, so we're $600 richer today. On the second paragraph, you know, we talk about there is a greater need now because we're not at the top of the graph of development, probably about a quarter of the way through. As you'll see in these PowerPoints, you'll see that we're probably only about 25% of the way through our development. So probably another 10 years of drilling and about another 30, 40 years of production. So we'll continue to have this regulatory need. All the more reason we need to rely on our federal partnership to really help it. One tribe, one department, one staff director cannot do this by themselves. If they think they can, they just don't know. Maybe they haven't been in the middle of a truck sandwich before. And so it takes a team effort. It takes everybody working hard to get in front of this thing. And so that's really what I'm saying, and what we're saying in the next paragraph or two, is we're talking about that kind of a team partnership that needs to happen. And then we talked, you know, earlier at the agency, we talked about the number of steps, the 49 steps, and the superintendent talked about over 200 days to get a permit to drill versus in the state you can get it in as low as 10 days and that sort of thing. And so that, you know, that can definitely put us at a disadvantage. The third paragraph we talk about all the other minerals. That includes oil, gas, coal, sand, gravel, and other minerals. There's a map over here on the right side, your right side. I don't know if you have one on the PowerPoint of the map, Fred.
We have one right on that easel, Chairman.
Oh, okay, good. And so we've been blessed with a lot of these minerals that you see here. And there's a great need for now for gravel. And so we're looking for gravel to crush gravel, and there's a great need for sand because you have to have that combination of gravel, sand, and clay that actually binds the road. And then, of course, our groundwater in our lake. A lot of the locations, there's how many wells we service in? About 450 total trust and fee, Fred?
I believe that's
just a ballpark figure?
507 wells that are currently
507. Well, my point is now is that all of the water locations on the reservation, there's a permit. And the Army Corps issued permits to the lake, but then they put a moratorium on it. And so all of those locations that were provided a permit for water before the moratorium, they reached their limit. And so now they have to travel off the reservation. So the tribe, through its water office, Fort Berthold Rural Water Office, and I don't know if Maynard Memory's here, but he's our director. We're in a business now of trying to provide water so we don't have that truck traffic going all over. So we're going to put the water depots, a water meter and a water depot on location. And the most numerous wells are in that horseshoe up on the north side. They call that the Shell Creek, that horseshoe. And then on the west side in Mandaree. And that's probably where 2/3 of all the wells are, in those two locations. And so that's where we're zeroing in to provide water. And what we're telling the Army Corps of Engineers, though, because they're trying to, I don't even know if I'd call it consultation, but they were trying to charge the tribe for its own water. So we had to remind the Corps that you're not an owner, you're a manager. You're not an owner, you're a manager of the lake, and managers don't dictate to the owner what you're going to charge the owner for your water. And if anything, any permits within the exterior boundaries of the reservation should be a tribal water permit. You know, tribe has full sovereign authority over regulatory and over its water. We are looking to quantify, but that's a whole different issue. And the Corps will ask, they've asked us about, are we quantifying? I said, the right to the ownership is still there, whether we quantify or not, but we have started the process of assembling a tribal team to look at quantifying our water rates. And so water is going to be very valuable, and I'm going to kind of jump around because I'm not going to have time to finish this report, but since we're on water, the riverbed, and I don't know if that map, but if you look at this map, you'll see that in the blue is the Lake Sakakawea, which was larger, but in the white is the original river channel. Can you see that? The bed is in question, and the tribe feels that it owns the riverbed, and that we have a 1936 solicitor's opinion that says just that. And the state claims they own it, so for leases that are occurring under the river, it goes into escrow. So we've started negotiations with the Army Corps and the Department of Interior. It was, in our position as a tribe, it was an administrative error in 1936. They should have put title to the tribe in 1936. So from 36 to 2012, it never happened. So this is not like a feed of trust transaction. It's not. It never left trust status. It never left that. It's simply a managerial function that was never recorded. So we're working with Tim LaPointe at the BIA regional office, and we're working with the Washington DOI BIA office. And we were concerned that the state is going to try to issue leases under the riverbed, and we're saying, hey, wait a minute now, we need to get this who's got the title thing straightened out. So this will be huge, you know, huge for the tribe. We're hopeful that this can be taken care of very soon, because the legal documents are already there. I'll just kind of skip around here and if you go to page 6, it talks more about the first paragraph. The federal government talks about must also protect the water rights that are reserved for the MHA Nation. And we're saying that's part of the federal trust responsibility, because our water rights are a trust asset or trust resource. And we know this is a lengthy process. You know, seems like everything the government does, it's not a simple, straightforward process. That's why we're still deciding on the riverbed since 1936, even though the document's in place. And so we'll continue to, I guess consultation is my point I'm going to make. And, you know, with the Army Corps, that's that infamous picture on that wall over there shows Chairman Gillette crying in 1948 when the Army Corps forced flooding. The dam could have been located closer to Williston, and it wouldn't have destroyed all the homelands, but that's what the Army Corps in their infinite wisdom decided. And so when they talk about you know, what the Corps' rights are when it comes to water, we're quick to point out you're not an owner, you don't have that right, and you need to consult. And we don't know how long Assistant Secretary Joel Darcy will take in terms of that water surplus, but we do need access to the water, lake water now. Either that or the Bureau of Reclamation. There's two ways we can get water for continued development. The Bureau of Reclamation has 1.2 million acre feet of water down to its intakes, and they don't use all of that. So the tribe, under the trust responsibility of BOR, can come in and use that water for, you know, for commercial purposes through that, or it can get it on the lake through the Army Corps. But we have both agencies that are kind of not really quick to respond. And so by them not being quick to respond, as I said, that puts more truck traffic on the road. Because all of those permits have all reached their allocation as those that the Army Corps provided to those businesses were state permits, and so then they did the moratorium. So that really needs to that leaves the tribe at a disadvantage for, you know, what that picture stood for and all the flooding stood for, and we can't even use that own water. You know, it's like, what did all that happen for? Did it happen just in vain, where it destroyed 156,000 acres and we can't even use that water? And so on that last page, on the paragraph where it says the time has come for the executive branch to exercise the authority that Congress has delegated to it, consistent with its trust obligation, to protect and promote tribal sovereignty and restore the territorial sovereignty that the federal courts have without justification taken away from us. There is a relationship between tribal sovereignty and federal trust responsibility. The two are not incompatible. The Supreme Court justices are not the final arbiters of our sovereignty. The government-to-government relationship that Indian tribes have historically recognized has been with the present United States and the Bureau of Indian Affairs ever since Congress placed the authority over Indian affairs with the President. So we're calling on the executive branch to step up and exercise its rightful authority in accordance with federal trust responsibility to protect tribal sovereignty. And so we're hopeful that in this whole process that with the Trust Commission that the trust responsibility will be strengthened because of all the actions and activities. And so that's about all I have, everybody. So any comments or questions? If not, we're going to go on to the next presenter, and that's Fred Fox, the Director of our Energy and Oil and Gas Office. Fred.
Our presentation is going to be on one of our our responsibilities the Energy Department provides for the three affiliated tribes. The three things that we provide for the three affiliated tribes is monitoring oil and gas activities such as leasing, permitting, drilling, production, and federal regulations that pertain to trust minerals. We also do oil and gas compliance with spill response. We have Carson Hood. He is our compliance manager. Carson, maybe you can stand up here. And Harley Pace. He's another compliance manager. Another important aspect that we do for the tribe is monitoring royalty and production. I'm going to introduce Steve Gunderson. He is a consultant with the three affiliated tribes. His firm is called Salt Advisors. He was hired in December of 2012, and his scope of work and what he provides for the tribe was to reconcile our tribal royalties and monitor our production and reconcile both of them. what we've found is we found the reporting with, I guess, with the operators to the federal agencies is not consistent as it should be. And I also had given you in your packet a sample of our tribal reconciliation report that we receive monthly from month by month. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and he'll go over a short overview of what he provides and what we're actually monitoring and why we're doing this.
Good afternoon, commissioners and staff, council members, and general audience. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of this information with the commission in this forum. I'm going to just spend a few 5 minutes here and just give you a quick overview of what we do, highlight some of the challenges that we see to effective reporting regarding royalties on MHA. And we have a couple of potential solutions as well, or recommendations that might be good to help follow up on to improve some of the effectiveness of reporting on MHA. Sort of maybe an introductory statement would be that Tall Salt is an independent firm. I own it 100%. It's Native American owned. And we specialize in investments, corporate finance, and litigation support. And we've been engaged by MHA through the end of the year to do reviews, limited scope review of the royalty and production reporting process for the ends that Fred was just mentioning. We're all aware that the history of tribes, energy, and companies and the United States government is pockmarked with lawsuits and settlements over energy resources. These usually center around contractual rights that may or may not have been fulfilled by energy companies, and also by the trust responsibilities of the federal government. The work that we do is designed to prevent, first and foremost, lawsuits in the future, and making sure that the contractual rights are indeed honored and respected at this particular time on an ongoing basis. In the event that that does not work, it lays the groundwork for future litigation preparation as well. We are early in the life of the Bakken. The first Bakken wells, as you're aware, were drilled in mid-2008. These are wells on FBIR, in which MHA has a mineral trust interest. It is our view that this is now the time, early on in the process, not 7 or 10 years down the road. Now is the time to work in a collaborative relationship with the operators to find ways to be sure that they're complying with the reporting procedures, and also to work with the federal agencies to be sure that the federal reporting process is efficient and effective as well. So to that end, the information here on page 4 in your packet, and what you see up on the screen, essentially what we're doing is we are doing a limited scope review as opposed to a full-blown audit. The idea here is to do something that can be rather nimble and very quick, focus on areas that are of high risk with outliers of data and so on, and then be able to react and work with operators and the federal agencies on an ongoing basis. Moving on to the next page. Essentially what we're doing is we're looking at information that comes to federal agencies that is reported on the production reports, which is the OGORs, or Form 4054, the royalty statements, Form 2014, the distribution payment forms, and as well as information that's reported to the state of North Dakota. And we have a number of deliverables. I understand you have a copy of one of the monthly reports in front of you. Some of our overall findings are these right here. We have some challenges that I think exist with regards to being able to provide the tribe with the ability to reconcile the data between these different sources effectively. The first is that operators do not follow federal reporting regulations and guidelines for a meaningful number of wells. Not a majority, but there's enough there that the reporting process, it's difficult to reconcile data from different sources on an ongoing basis and on a timely basis, so we can work very quickly to correct any problems we see before it becomes a 3, 5, 7, 10-year kind of problem that has to go back and be corrected after Firms have moved on, sold their interests, liquidated, go bankrupt, all the things that occur in the energy industry. The other thing we find is that there are some limitations in the honor reporting system. I'm referring primarily to the IT systems here that limit the ability of TAT and probably honor to reconcile TAT's production and royalty information on a timely basis. And number three, it appears as though some of the federal agencies may be somewhat understaffed to fulfill the roles according to the standard operating procedures that are designed to operate this reporting system. I'll go quickly into what some of these are. Page number 2 is some of the detail here on that category 1, just highlighting some of the key points about some of the problems that we do find. Category 2 is probably the one I'll spend the most time on here in the next 2 minutes or so. This is the one where there are some limitations in the honor reporting IT systems. Essentially, the production is reported on a by-well basis, and the royalty information is reported on a per-lease basis, which wouldn't be so much of a problem if it was a one-to-one relationship, one well per lease. But there are some interesting dynamics about the Bakken opportunity that I'll describe in just a minute that create some problems for this. One of the challenges that we find is that the architecture of Honor's database does not provide for an API lease number combination denominator for some of the information, which would be a nice reconciling piece of information to use. I'm not saying it's the ultimate solution or what should be done, but it would be perhaps an ideal solution. So what causes this challenge? Where there once was a one-to-one or one-to-few relationship between wells to leases, and one could easily track through, say, 2 leases on a, or 2 wells on a lease and so on, the Bakken is a situation where the spacing units have grown so large because of this ability to drill 2 or 3 miles horizontally underground, so therefore you're bringing in all kinds of leases, multiple leases from the tribe, fee leases as well as allotee leases. And this greatly increases the number of the amount of complexity in doing these calculations. Also, they're drilling approximately 4 wells per communitization agreement. Here's just an example you can see where that little box, little diagram is meant to show essentially 2 square miles divided by a number of hypothetical leases, showing how 4 wells are dividing through all those. So it creates some additional complications that perhaps were not as commonplace when the Honor IT systems were first developed. The other thing is that TAT is starting to make use of some very large lease technologies or techniques. This is through their IMDAs, which consolidate extremely large amounts of land, 15,000 acres or more, under one particular lease. And so when information such as royalties is reported by lease, you can effectively have hundreds of wells reporting under one lease and have no way to reconcile individual well production with individual well sales by these 2 different reporting mechanisms. Here's just an example of, you can sort of see how each 1 square mile, that's what the little squares represent on this particular sample here, are going to be drilled out most likely in this one particular township range. You can see that there's a large number of wells per communitization agreement, which creates this kind of complexity. And this is only if they address the Bakken. If operators can go and address other formations below the Bakken and find them to be productive, then you're going to have an exponential increase in the number of wells per CA or per lease. So it will further compound the problem. So the ideal solution would be to reconstruct the architecture of the Honor data warehouse to include an API lease number combination. I recognize that this could easily take a minimum of 2 years by the time you do the approvals and the studies, the planning process, the programming and the testing. That's just the nature of developing IT systems. But the thing is, we need to have a solution now to be sure that these problems don't compound into the future. A simple solution is simply to require that operators fill in the API field number on their Form 2014, and they fill in the lease number on the MMS 4054. That will allow us to be able to do a manual cross-reference, not automatic with IT systems, but a manual quick process is a lot better than nothing at all. You can read through the considerations, but we don't think it puts a particularly large burden on Honor. All the burden is put on to the operators. But the operators already track this information anyway for their own reporting purposes for working interest calculations as well as taxation. Category 3, we just noticed a number of places where it seems as though, for instance, the Category 1 issues wouldn't be as big of an issue if there were more people available to follow up and track down challenges with the operators when they fail to report on a timely basis or in compliance with federal regulations. And then, in the context of the things that I work with, there's a NIOGEMS database which has not been updated in a while. And it's a very important resource for the tribe to use to be able to track through and fill in some of the holes until some of the other areas of the IT system are addressed. So with that, that's just the quick and dirty of some of the things that we are addressing. Obviously, I'm available for questions now or at the appropriate time.
Yeah, go ahead. Any questions or comments for Steve? Okay, if not, thank you, Steve. We'll go to Mark Fox, Tax Director.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. I'm honored to have you here, and the tribe, and Chairman, of course, is a member of the Commission. We're very fortunate that he would be in that position to help our tribe weigh in on some of the developments that you have to contend with and help us out in Indian country. But as Chairman said, I'm the Tax Director of the tribe, and then his office in Rick Run Nation. Put it in the context of what we do here for the tribe. Right now, tax revenue is the primary source of revenue for the tribe. We anticipate this year collecting under our tax system around $80 million. Could be slightly higher, could be slightly lower, depending on what goes on out there. But our tax comes from primarily really two areas. We have a motor fuels tax agreement with the state that is older than our oil and gas agreement with the state, but the motor fuels is not real significant, but it has grown exponentially because of the traffic out there. And we're going to probably bring in a little over $2 million in motor fuels, which is taxed at the pump, split with the state 70-30. So we get 70%, the state gets 30%, and we split that tax at the pump on gas sales. The real crucial area, and what we're talking about here, is oil and gas on Fort Berthold. We currently have an agreement with the state, and as the Chairman's letter says, in his letter that he presented and went over, we have an agreement that has not really been real favorable to us, but nevertheless it was passed and it was moved forward by our tribe. And in that scenario of it all, oil and gas tax agreement looks as such, and we'll make copies available. We have copies available. Any of the commission members want any of those, we'll make them available to you. But in that, we have a split of production taxes and extraction taxes. And historically, and we have four handout, if anybody would like them. Rick, can you make sure the council each gets one of these, and then leave the copies up on the desk. Also available, that breaks down the split between state and tribe on what we're receiving. But let me just put them in general term numbers. Like I said, the tribe's going to get about $80 million in production, extraction, and what we call drilling fees under the agreement with the state. So there's three parts to that: production, extraction, and then drilling. And that's the type of revenue we're going to have. We expect that to exceed $100 million by next year. Rick, can you make sure I got your reference one? Just to give you an idea of how things have radically changed, when the agreement came into place in July of 2008, actually signed in June, and then we got payments in July of 2008. In that first year, in 2008, the tax that the tribe received was about 1.2 and the state about 4.6. So we're looking at about in that 2008, a little more than half the year, of about $6 or $7 million. Now, if you combine what the state's going to make in the tax and what we're going to do as well too, you're looking at close to $200 million. $200 million in tax. So in 4 years, we've grown from $8 million tax base to $200 million tax base. As the chairman alluded to in his letter, but we have an unfortunate circumstance which we are trying to correct, make the agreement a little more equitable. As he refers to in his letter, some of the case law, cotton petroleum, and things of that nature are an impediment to development here. But right now, the state is getting the lion's share of the tax. The state's collecting nearly 70%, about 2/3 of the tax. The state is collecting under the agreement. Yet 60% of the tax base comes from tribal lands. And that's kind of the concern that we've got, that you're getting most of the tax off of tribal land, but yet the state's splitting it that way. Now what does that have to do with the commission and ONRR and how you track and record? Our job, my staff, and the gentleman handling out, he's our internal auditor that we have, Rick's a CPA that we hired. Fortunately, he came out, he's experienced with about 4 other tribes and working, and ran his own company, software and data, but he helps us track. We're assured compliance with the agreement between us and the state. And what we do is we track all payments, we track, reconcile to wells, we're building well files as we speak. Every single well, we've got a well file, when it was produced, how much tax, and we want to make sure that compliance is there. Basically, on behalf of our government, my bosses, the chairman and members of the council, we have to assure that we're getting the right tax that we agreed to participating with the state. Where we're at for ONRR is that we rely primarily, if not almost totally, on state data. We get our data from the state. The state keep pretty accurate records. They're greedier than us, let me just say it that way. They like to count their dollars a lot more closer than we do. So what do? We rely on their information because they want those splits. And in particular, here's how the agreement works. When it's trust land, trust acreage, a trust well, then it's split 50-50 on production and extraction starting day one. When it's non-tribal, it's 80-20 their favor. Tribe does get 20% of production and gets nothing on extraction. Even under the exemption expiring after 5 years that they have in their law, we still will get nothing on extraction from fee land, non-tribal fee land. So they really are really trying to be precise and accurate in how they gather information and how they determine the tax and then mail us a check, so to speak. And so we use that information to reconcile back our own information. What would really behoove us are 2 things. The first one is if ONRR itself could help promote, as you just heard Talsalt talking about when it comes to royalties, if we could get a more comprehensive, more up-to-date, accurate system, that would enable us in assessing and analyzing our tax, that would enable us to make sure that we're getting the proper tax. Because if we have a difference or we have a conflict with the state information, we disagree that maybe that production was more on a certain well and you sent us this much in the tax, and we differ with your data, we want to be able to fall back and say, well, our federal data provides this. Our federal data is showing us something different from what your state does. And right now, we really don't have that system in play. We're kind of at their mercy, so to speak, on their data, and sometimes we do find corrective information and what have you. Sometimes we do make changes to that. Sheila's got in hand an example, like last month's data. It's a 1-page summary that we get out. Sheila, want to just give each member of the council a handout on that? And so if we had a more comprehensive, reliable federal system that we could rely on, just as Talsalt or what the Energy Department had just proposed, then we could cross-compare, cross-analyze, and we can make sure that the proper tax is being paid. So it's very important for us as well, too. With the Bureau sitting here, and of course the Commission on how we manage our trust funds and our trust assets, one of the things that came up in the agreement that is kind of causing a little bit of a haze and ambiguity that we're getting concerned over is under the agreement when we drill a well and then the majority of the land is trust, we're able to apply a drilling fee of $100,000. Historically for us, that's been close to $40 million. So about nearly 400 wells have come under that scenario where we've collected $100,000 per well. But it also says in the agreement that they have to be majority, and then is there any conflict over whether or not it is, if you have what appears to be a spacing unit that is 50-50, non-trust versus trust. We're getting an ambiguity going on where the oil companies are saying, well, as far as we're concerned, we're not supposed to pay that. In the agreement, it basically says if we have that scenario, it's deferred to the Bureau. And then the Bureau makes a determination whether or not it's majority tribe or not majority tribe. I think what was contemplated, and I can't speak to it personally, but I think what was contemplated is that one way or another, either you have a definite payment or non-payment of that, and not leave it ambiguous as to the 50-50 and whether it's slightly more this or that way. If we're going to need some help on that in a few cases. They're starting to grow more and more. So we're going to have to assert some of those deferrals with Mr. Silk and his members of staff, Mr. Hunt, and then getting your support in the system as well too. Pretty much about, Mr. Chairman, what we have in a nutshell for tax and how we have to rely on the reports. And if the commission can propose ways to improve that we could rely on better, then it would definitely help us, because as you see, we've grown from 8 million in 1 year to 100 million now, and it's going to continue to grow. It'd be my estimate that we're talking billions. In the next 10 to 20 years, we're talking $3 to $4 billion in tax and royalty that we have to be accounted for, and we have to make sure are accurate. If we don't do that, then you can see where minor mistakes or minor oversight literally can cost the tribe millions of dollars. It really can. Our staff right now in reconciliation, we've gone back with my staff. In the last 6 months, we've gone back and reconciled close to $4 million that the tribe was owed, was not paid, and because of their efforts and my staff getting diligent at it, we've been able to go back in and find and say, look, you owe this much more, or this much more is owed, etc. And getting payments paid, particularly under the drilling side of it. So we've been able to recover that kind of amount.
Okay, any questions for Mark? Good, thank you, Mark. John is not here, so we'll catch up on time and move on without him. We'll go to the BIA, Tom Wells and Renita Holloway.
I'd like to say again, good afternoon and welcome to the Indian Trust Commission for coming to Fort Berthold and allowing us this opportunity to the Bureau of Indian Affairs to give you some information. Also like to say thank you to the 3 affiliated tribes, Business Council, or tribal membership, and I'd like to acknowledge our elders that are here today. I know our primary focus is the oil and gas activity that's really caused a lot of interest to this area and our reservation in particular. Can you go to the next slide, please? But and our PowerPoint is it's geared more towards the oil and gas. Here you see the reservation map of Fort Berthold. This is actually the mineral acreage, how it's detailed. All the yellow that you see there, it's fee acreage. The light green that you see is the allotted our tribal member land, and the purple or pink that you see, that's the land that's owned by the 3 affiliated tribes, or the minerals owned by the 3 affiliated tribes. Now to break that down, there's approximately 436,000 fee acres. We have 463,000 allotted acres, and there are 190,000 tribal mineral acres. And like we talked to you earlier, we have 507,000 of those trust acres under lease. And from that, there's 281,000 acres that are receiving or sharing in production, receiving oil and gas royalties. But another thing that we didn't really get a real good chance to talk to the Trust Commission about was all the other activities that our Real Estate Services program does here on Fort Berthold. You know, we also administer leases for farm pasture and grazing units. And currently we have 327 farm pasture leases that have been approved through the agency. That consists of 101,000 acres of farm and pasture land. We have 93 range units that are encompass Fort Berthold. There, the acreage is 173,000 that are in these pasture leases or grazing leases. And the income that's generated from our farm pasture is $550,000. The income generated from grazing is $432,000. So in addition to all this oil and gas income and activity, you know, those are other duties that we're required to, you know, where we meet our mission, the agency's mission. And then another branch within realty is our probate. We currently, this year, we have we've had 60 tribal members deceased, and of that, we have about 16 of those estates that we haven't completed the paperwork on and submitted those packages to the Office of Hearing and Appeals for docketing for a hearing. So there's a considerable amount of work that we do, but I know our main focus is oil and gas. And just to kind of give you some numbers, as far as staff, we have 7 staff people that address real estate. And of those, 6 of them work primarily with oil and gas. And so we have one individual that's kind of doing the acquisitions and disposal. And then we have another individual that's doing our farm pasture. And so one thing that I'd like to bring out, and one thing that Renita wanted me to stress, was that we couldn't get this accomplished with the oil and gas activity without these staff people going beyond their 40-hour work week. They had to spend a lot of overtime to accomplish the objectives of meeting the industry's need for leases, right-of-ways, drilling permits. And so all our staff people, you know, spent countless hours just trying to meet that objective for the industry and the tribal members. Another thing that allowed us to do this is we had a lot of help from our regional. We had a lot of regional staff support. At many times during the summer, even in winter, they detailed a lot of their employees to our installation to assist us with helping us get all this work done. And then we also had staff from other agencies, surrounding agencies, to pitch in and help us. And so there was a really big effort by the on the federal side in order for us to accomplish all that's been done. Earlier, seen all the numbers. We passed out the monthly status report, which is a cumulative total of all the processes that we do since 2007. And so, you know, it was many people that helped us at the agency to accomplish this. Next slide. Okay, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, as trustee, these are just some of our roles and responsibilities that I'd kind of like to point out to the Trust Commission. We maintain trust real property assets for individual Indians and tribes. You know, I just broke that down, the surface and mineral ownership. We also have coal, which is predominantly owned by the 3 affiliated tribes, but we do have an area in the southeastern part of our reservation where the Latis own the coal rights. As trustee, we facilitate oil and gas lease sales, and then we also assist the tribal members and sometimes the tribe in negotiating oil and gas leases or agreements. We approve and issue individual Indian tribal leases, Indian mineral development agreements, and communitization unitization agreements. As it stands right now, like we have 2,871 approved leases, both tribal and allotted. And we have 4 IMBA agreements that have been approved. And communitization agreements that we have are 278. And from those communitization agreements, there's 1,193 leases that are tied into these communitization agreements. And that covers 281,000 acres. And then along with Bureau of Land Management's recommendation, we have the approval authority for all of the communitization and unit agreements. Currently, we have 2 unit agreements, one in our Twin Buttes area that's over 17,000 acres, Jeff. And we have one south of Parshall that consists of almost 9,000 acres, I believe. We haven't seen any production on the one south of Parshall. We do have a number of wells that are producing in our Twin Buttes area under that unit agreement. Royalties are coming in. There seems to be, we're finally getting on track with our royalty distribution. Other things that we're responsible for. Next slide. Oh, here, oh no. Put your pointer right on the page. Double click. I was trying to enlarge that. But this is a sample of what we call a preliminary communitization agreement. And this is something that was instituted at the Fort Berthold Agency. And what this is doing, it's allowing the Office of Natural Resource Revenue to set up in their system the royalties, the production for the leases that are within these spacing areas. What's supposed to occur is a communitization agreement is supposed to be approved, but some of the companies have been, like Tall Salt had indicated, they were a little slow in submitting all their production reports and subsequently royalties. And so what we've done here is we issue these letters to the companies, preliminary communitization agreement. We're authorizing them, or we're instructing them to submit how they're going to, how these leases within those spacing areas are going to share in the production. And what it's doing is, I'm getting mixed up here.
What's that?
On the PCA.
Oh, what it does is expedites the royalty.
Oh, yeah.
Payment process.
And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the royalties paid out in a more timely manner. Otherwise, if we don't approve a communitization agreement, then royalties are just hung up. And so we've implemented this here locally. It hasn't been done any other at any other reservation. So this is somewhat new, and we've got other reservations kind of taking a look at this this method as far as them trying to get royalties dispersed timely on their reservations as well. Next slide. And then we also inspect right-of-ways, leases, operating production facilities for compliance with terms of the agreement during lease agreement issuance and application for permits to drill, approvals, and operational requirements. Now we have our environmental staff, they actually perform a lot of these duties, and before we actually make a recommendation for approval of the application for permit to drill. We explained earlier that there's a whole process. It was alluded the 49-step process, which is true. There are significant amount of steps that we have to take in order for the drill the bit to hit the ground. But our environmental staff does so far they've looked at 3,216 on-sites. They've performed that many. And on a weekly basis, their compliance averages anywhere from 50 to 75 compliance inspections. And we also determine the minimum royalty rates, rental rates, and lease terms. This is any advertised sale that we have. We get together with Bureau of Land Management and Office of Indian Energy, and then we've take a look and see what would be the most beneficial for the tribe and the allottees with regard to any bonus amounts. Rental rates, currently we have rental rates ranging from 18% to 21% on allotted land, and I think there's some leases that the three affiliated tribes agreed upon at 22.5%. So we feel that these rates are really decent. It's better when they're at 21 to 22.5%, but we're slowly getting them increased. All the acreage that's still available for leasing. Next slide. As trustee, we issue notices of non-compliance, cancellation, or leases who fail to abide by surface and mineral lease requirements. Again, our environmental section is really instrumental in this area. They go out there and they find any discrepancies or any issues that we have to address by letter to the operators. And we haven't actually had to do any letters of real non-compliance where we've had to cancel leases or anything, but there's with all this drilling, there's just a gamut of issues out there that require us to take a look at and try to address to mitigate any measures. We also establish bond values and collect bonds as needed. This is a requirement to hold a lease for an oil company or for a lessee on farmland, or to have a lease approved in their favor. And this is based on regulation for leasing minerals or surface. Then we also ensure compliance with the National Environmental Protection Act, National Historic Preservation Act, American Indian Religious Freedom Act, and then the Endangered Species Act. Now these are all requirements through our DESCRM office in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Operators have to go through that office in order to obtain a permit and conduct these assessments. And this is required before we approve any action that the company is proposing. Drilling, right-of-ways, home site leases. So everything is hinged on completing these actions here. NEPA. Questions? Okay.
So we have people out there that don't know, are they getting the best deal for their land?
Back in 2007, just prior to that, the royalty rate on oil and gas leases was 16 2/3. And in 2007, we felt that 18% was going to be our standard royalty rate. But since then, we know, we've back in 2008, it wasn't proven that the Bakken was, there was no wells drilled on Fort Berthold, and since that time, we know there's, it's here, it's evident, and so we've slowly been increasing the royalty rate. And along with that,
when you say you're slowly increasing it, is it so that you have a standard rate above 18% right now?
Oh, right now, our rate, we're looking at 20%.
And when you say you're looking at it, what does that mean then? So it's not officially approved that new rate moving forward? That's what I'm talking about.
It goes back to the company. The company, if they're willing to accept 20%, as a royalty. You know, some of them are pretty hard-nosed about it, but we're slowly breaking them down, and they're looking at. I guess they're getting more agreeable to 20% royalty rather than something less. But you know, that's the difficulty, and we try to. Most times we try to include the mineral owners and see how they feel about whatever we recommend. Mr. Silva.
Yeah, Mr. Superintendent, I just want to interject here that I can appreciate the concerns. We know when those leases are expiring, so does the landmen. And normally they're out at those homes knocking on those doors, making proposals to the mineral owners, telling them there's this sum of dollars here waiting for them. They just need to sign. Oftentimes when they come into the agency, we talk to them, we counsel them, and advise them otherwise. It's already made up, and many times there's multi-beneficiaries, owners, and it's hard to get them all together to agree. We had one instance where there was probably maybe as much as close to $1 million on the table. But yet, the family was told, and there was a number of people involved, take it now, get a fair share breakout of $120,000. They need the money. We appreciate that. We know that. And we're trying to do everything we can to help the mineral, but, you know, short of saying you're getting a bad deal, we can't do anything other than that. There are some individuals that have taken our advice to slow the vehicle down and wait for the better deal. That's where we got 1 acre for $9,388. So I'm just trying to say that we do what we can. Oftentimes that money's put on the table and they need it, and we appreciate that. We know they need it.
Tom, you got about a minute left, and we're going to go on.
Okay, there's just 2 more slides.
I have a question for the superintendent. I like the explanation. Here's a question I have for you. Relative to this oil company document that's presented to us in the housing, and you're talking to the oil companies asking them to increase the rate to 20%. They're beginning to break down. That means agree, I think. And slowly, though, you're doing the best you can. And then relative to your relationship with me and the others on the reservation who are at the other end of it, who are signing the document, that's the critical area right there when you sign up. Rich just mentioned the fellow who did that because he didn't know any better. They did that to us when they stole land from us, but 50 cents an acre, we didn't know any better. And so now we know better. And a question I have for you, Rich made a good suggestion, like help us with the guys who also need help. You would help them. Here's where you can help me right now in that respect. If that corn comes into my house and is on the kitchen table, I'll pass out 18% and like 20% on it. And then I'll sign it. Because that's what you guys want, right?
We want as much as we can get.
Okay, well, should I make it higher?
Yeah. I'm saying go 22%, and let's negotiate down to 20.
I'll put 22% on all the documents.
That's what I would recommend.
And we should also put that in the tribal newspaper and in the white newspaper and the Newtown News, because we all read those, and that's where we get a lot of our information from people, and there's nothing about this meeting in any newspaper or anywhere, so we don't know anything, and that's why this guy signs up erroneously or mistakenly or wrongly when he shouldn't have. That's what this saying if you had some help. So the help I need is from yourself and your agency people.
We're going to have to move on, you guys.
That's it. That's 22%.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. They're going to take the chairman's prerogative and move on. I think I'm going to go to the allottees, and then we'll go to the federal Q&A, because we're doing Q&A ahead of that. I can see it. So let's have Donna, Karen, and Pete come on up. Under mine, I'll take 10 seconds. This is on a refinery, our feed of trust. Rich, would you stand up and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Richard Mayer. I'm the CEO of Thunderview Petroleum Services, Inc., which is the corporate tribal corporation that's overseeing the construction and financing of our Clean Fuels Refinery project. It'll be east of the reservation.
So just the other 10 seconds. Took us 9 years to get a permit out of EPA, commissioners. 9 long years to get not an air permit, but a water discharge permit. Most people would have quit and went home. So now we're waiting for a feed of trust. And I believe it's, Tim, it's at Washington level with BIA and DOI?
That's correct. We have done all the review that was needed on the application, and it's just our findings are under review by our central office at this point. So it continues to be under review.
Okay. So we're really concerned about timelines, because Rich is, him and the staff and the tribal council approved in our August tribal council meeting a $360 million bond, and so we got investors, we got people waiting for this transaction to occur. So we would hope that there's some kind of a timeline when we're talking about it. I know Feed of Trust, commissioners, deals with every tribe, so we're just one of many. But with this deal, there's a lot of money tied into this. That's the max that you can get with a TED bond, a Tribal Economic Development Bond, is the 360, and it's about 360 to 400, maybe more in that area, right, Rich?
Yes, sir.
So the tribe has to come up with an equity share of that on top of the 360. So, something we might want to look at when we're talking about, timelines, for Feed of Trust applications, and we had to indemnify, we have an indemnification agreement, so we had to indemnify, and then on top of it, we had to add, Rich, was it 20 million in insurance?
Yes, sir. Supplemental insurance.
I mean, we're indemnifying the U.S. and we're paying 20 million on top of it already, so we're doing everything that's being asked, but we're just like, what next? What do we got to wait for? So they say Washington moves slow, but sometimes it really moves slow. But anyway, that's my 30 seconds. We'll go to Donna Cruz, Morgan, Lati, representing the elders.
Thank you, Chairman Hall. I'm glad to be here, and I'm going to address, I believe, the right officials here. But before I get started, I noticed on your agenda here, it says note, because there is sensitive personal identification or identifiable information at this location, the tour is limited of the commission and federal employees. Now, what is so sensitive about here, this information here? All the oil companies and other places are aware of, with the Bureau getting our land information, everything. I'm going to share that with you in a few minutes. But I had the opportunity to go to Chairman Hall about almost 8 years ago. Several of us went, and we addressed the commission on the one-stop shop. Today that has not materialized. And what I recently learned is some of the employees that worked for BLM for many years went into the oil company. So these are things, a lot of us are not aware of that live on this reservation. We have to start informing our people and getting them informed. In 1970, I briefly worked with the Realty office, and they had an oil and gas there, leases back then. We did everything manually. Back then, they had to have 100% signature for all transactions. Today, it's 51%, and there is still difficulty. What is the problem? Are they the workers, the employees? Who is it? Who is responsible here? There are many problems and we are faced with all of this. As Chairman Hall mentioned earlier, our construction here, what's going on, we have problems here. Now, a lot of our elders are coming, stop everything. Stop it. So we are in a dilemma here. I want to go back. We used to, when I briefly worked for the Realty Department, we had, I was going to go with this here first. I had a company come and approach me about right-of-way. Some of these forms are obsolete, and we have discussed it and talked about it and brought it up at the summit. Now, years ago when I did work for the Bureau, we used to get directives from Washington, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIAM. Where's Renita? Where's Mr. B? Earl Seal. Those used to be updated. Here's the Realty Department. All of those forms used to be updated. And that was our Bible. Are those updated? You know, because everything is obsolete today. But we used to have those manuals, BIAM. And all those changes used to go in there. This company referred to the CFR to me. And I said, times have changed. There's, a difference here now. But are those kept up, Tom? The BIAM, those manuals? Because we used to get one from the Department of Interior and one from BIAM, and those used to be, we kept them up to date. And that was our Bible.
There really
all of those changes should be in that BIAM.
There really hasn't been any changes.
See? So that's the fault of, the employees. Aberdeen is there. Those were our instructions that we followed. We abided by those laws. And that was the manual. And I don't know if you still have those manuals. BIAM manuals?
Yes, we do.
You do. I'd like to come in and see your updates. Because, a lot of us have complained about the right-of-way. And when I did make a change in that right-of-way, I was called back after talking to several of you for over almost 2 months. And after I signed that agreement and changed the wording in there, a committee had gotten together and overruled me. But I had already discussed, part of this to you, your officer. The other thing I would like to share with you, I was concerned about those directives that come from there. But like we said, there's 49 steps, that was mentioned earlier. That hasn't changed today. We still hear from a lot of the allottees, and something needs to be done. It's been almost, 8 years since we were there in Washington, and we need to step forward now and get this completed. I hope I didn't go over time. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Council members, and Trust Commission. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Karen Rabbithead, and I'm president of the Awa Nakwaga Association. I am also an enrolled member, a landowner, and a mineral owner. And I also want to just remind you, too, that I am also the chairman's chief of staff. So I get to hear a lot of these issues and concerns every day in our office. But the trust responsibility, the fiduciary duty, and the trustee are only words and are meaningless to the BI officials on this Fort Berthold Indian Reservation. Conflicts of interest run rampant on the reservation. BI officials are mineral and surface owners who put their interest ahead of the Indian people here on the reservation. The BI Energy Office One-Stop Shop has abrogated their responsibilities to the Indian people and is a disaster and has become nothing more than an advocacy office for the oil companies. The issues are many, all at the detriment to our Indian people here on Fort Berthold. Elder abuse and their IAM accounts, allowing oil companies to draft letters for BIA to sign, allowing oil companies to mortgage Indian trust land without consent or benefit to Indian people, referring to the IMDAs. Approving leases assignments without Indian consent, allowing communitization agreements to increase from 320 to 640 to 1280, without drill commitments, resulting in land being held up by production with no further development. Oil companies have made billions, all at the detriment of our people here. Our tribe was given little or no choice but to PL 93-638, this oil and gas that's happening here on Fort Berthold Energy, the one-stop shop at the Energy Department. We were given no choice. There was nothing else was happening for us here. The people have a lot of concerns and issues here, and it's been going on and on. Again, I want to thank you, Chairman Hall and Trust Commission, for allowing me to speak on behalf of my people today. And the concerns and issues that I spoke of today are very important to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Pete Hale.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pete Hale. I'm president of the Fort Berthold Land and Mineral and Lotte Association. We were started back in 2008. Our former chairman, our Chairman Tex Hall, was the founder of our association, which in numerous of members went to Washington, D.C. to lobby for the one-stop shop, where on non-tribal lands it only takes four deals to be in place to get a well drilled. We promote and protect the values of our lands. We felt the tribe and the Fort Berthold Agency and oil companies were not. As a result, the association, we obtained the highest leases for our minerals at $1,000 an acre and 21% royalty, when the tribe was getting $50 an acre to $100 an acre and 18% royalty. We held numerous meetings in Mandaree, where our office is located, right in the heart of the Bakken, where 2/3 of the oil and wells will be producing. Of course, this is as we all are the greatest impact right now is in the Mandaree area regarding our roads, water, oil spills, trash, and numerous other things. Many allottees were frustrated with the Fort Berthold BIA. The agency inadequately responded as they did not provide adequate answers to us as allottees. The Fort Berthold agency signed off on leases for allottees at $100 an acre, not seeking or demanding higher pay or fair market value. There's also been numerous reports to our association of illegal dumping. Oil companies and their subcontractors were dumping hazardous material on allottee land and tribal lands, where again, our local agency did nothing. However, we are grateful that the association, to the Tribal Business Council and to Chairman Hall, that they have passed environmental codes and fines up to $1 million for their thorough offense of potentially dumping oil or salt water on roads and ditches. There is a saltwater disposal over by my place that I have witnessed several different oil companies dumping salt water on the road as they leave their location. And this has been going on for quite a while, and yet I have not seen anybody out there. And I reported it to, I believe Interplus owns the saltwater disposal channel, to where there has been companies dumping on Route 4 as you head back to the highway. I'm sorry that I'm a little nervous. I haven't spoken to a lot of people for a long time, but it's greatly appreciated to see you all here. I'm very thankful to be here, and hope everybody has safe travels home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete, and thanks for coming out of those hills so you weren't so nervous. Thank you to all the allottees. And next we'd like to, we have about 15 minutes, so we'd like to have the representatives from Honor, Kathy, BLM, Don, Jamie, BIA, Tim, and Earl, OST, Austin, and Petroleum Engineer Jeff Hunt. If you come on up. Pete, can you help us kind of get some chairs? We'll maybe face the audience. We'll put our chairs so we're facing it. We'll kind of go into our Q&A, and we'll try not to belabor, on one topic too long, so we keep it moving. We'll maximize the 15 minutes. And if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll recognize you. And Please state your name.
You get it back here.
State your question. If you want to ask any one of these officials for your answer. You've never seen a panel so loaded like this, so here's your chance. So we'll start Q&A. Anybody have a question for the panel? Judy or Arnie, feel free to jump in too if you have a question. Yes, Mark.
Mr. Chairman, if I can real quick here, I have to leave just a short bit myself, but I believe the chance to gain a little bit disappointing over at DIA headquarters, and of course, got a great opportunity with Earl and Mr. Hunt here to talk about the same issue. But Karen just mentioned it in hers, and I know the chairman has brought it up as well too, this whole CA situation, communitization agreement. A lot of people, not just the last couple of months, but for over a year and a half, I've had elders come into my office. I know the council's here the same thing, but very much concerned about how these CAs are being applied and protecting us. Number one, not diminishing our values of our own resources by spreading out our pie, so to speak, mirror to a lot of people. Sometimes Jeff knows I use the unfortunate term of calling it social engineering, making sure anything's all get something, even if it's a little bit. Some people feel like, well, if that oil is under my land, I shouldn't be splitting it under 2560 with a lot of people. That's under mine, I should be getting paid that $5,000 to $10,000 a month. And they're very upset about that. I know the counter to that is, well, if it's done on my land and I get some here, well, why does it still feel that way? So if there's no oil on my land, I don't want to take some from you. So that's one issue. The other is that, the notice requirements. I think everybody in here probably agrees, the elders that are here, Donna just spoke, everybody agrees that the notice is coming after the fact. We're getting these notices from the oil company. They're required to tell us we're in the CA, but we're getting them 2 months or a month after we're in the CA. And that notice does us no good. It gives us no opportunity to contest or to ask questions or to defer or things of that nature. So making sure that we follow the rules and making sure that all the allottees got a chance to get a notice that you're going to be put into a CA, give us a chance to ask for some redress if we have concerns, and then the movement into the CA, not after the fact say, congratulations, you're in the CA. We're very much concerned about that. And then the third and final thing I'll bring about CAs, and what I guess my question will be to you is, what are you doing to help us counter this? But the third is obviously is when you have CAs about to be applied, and I'm not here to be disrespectful to the oil company, but it's about money and bottom line, and we know that. But if we have what appears to be, let's say, 6 months to a year, lease is getting set to expire, the company's got an incentive to hang on to that lease, which can be, as the famous term, HBP, held by production. One well can hold that. So if you have an existing well under a situation and then you get pulled in your acreage into that, and you thought you were going to have an opportunity to renegotiate your lease or force production by drilling, all of a sudden they pull you into that. Now you're in that held by production status, and then it was raised. And it's very, very dangerous for us, because if the BIA stands off on that held by production for us, all of a sudden we've got no negotiation power. Our economic capabilities are gone, because the company's going to say, we don't have to do anything with that as long as that well's pumping and you're in that CA. And so you're really, really affecting our ability as individuals to maximize the value of our resources. So, we'd like to see red flags or an MOU or MOA with the tribe, chairman could sign off, Earl could sign off, that the agreement, and the Industrial Commission understands that when we have certain scenarios, lease getting set to expire within 6 months or a year, red flags go up and you sit down with the allottees and explain things before you sign off on any CAs and things of that nature. So, Mr. Chairman, those are kind of like 3 things involved in CA that I think the Commission needs to understand very important to us, and how it's affecting us and how we manage our resources.
Anybody want to answer that for the panel? If not,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead, Earl.
I can appreciate the concerns for the CA, but when you have multiple owners and that lateral, I'm going to be upfront here. I own property here as well. 458 of us owners are on that track. I mean, how do you segregate? You can't. But these are problems, and these are the best solutions, remedies we have at the present time under the regulations. And Jeff is the guru on this, but I just want to lay that out. And I'm not unique. It's like this in many cases. The mineral owners are abundant, and very few where you have 1 over 1 owners. Those are the real owners who get everything. But in that case, yeah, you don't want to have.
And Mark, you should draft something though, so we have
Something to consider, maybe something that might work to help us raise red flags. Is basically where we can identify a certain track. Not, we're not saying every single track 450 owners or 3 owners that we're going to be able to have all that due diligence, but there'll be certain indicators that will raise red flags that makes you zone in on certain contracts. Say, well, we got to have extra care and extra diligence, and we should be able to develop that. But I will say this. Just based on what I heard today between Jeff and Earl, and in regards to my own tracks and my own family's tracks, and the way they're addressing it and the way they're being cognizant, I see a great improvement regarding CAs from a year or 2 years ago. I see that. We're just not where we need to be yet.
How many you forward to Jeff?
Well, why don't we move on to Earl, because I've got some more hands. Peterson, you had your hand.
Yes, going back to the fair market value for commodities that we have for our energy, I think our tribe here has to be very careful on the quality of the oil that you have, because the federal government will play this game. They play their game with us on Navajo, on the price of coal. And the price of coal went anywhere from 6.25% to 12.5% on all federal land, and then anything above that. And when we were renegotiating the lease on our coal, we were told that we have to start with 6.25%, and that all federal land, they were doing a leasing and contracting for 12.5%. And the federal government told us that, yes, you should really consider coming under that 12.5%. But what we were trying to do was negotiate with a company that was willing to go about 20%. And as you all know, it went to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court came out with a decision saying that the Navajo people were wrong. And because the federal government came back and in many ways twist the arms of the Navajo, and they entered into 12.5%, which was wrong. And so I guess advice to the tribe here is that when you do certain things like that, you're setting precedents. You're setting precedents for all of the other Indian tribes, and that has to be considered, because sometimes we have a tendency to look at our own little groupings, or our own little family, and not really look at the larger picture. Because if they convince you to enter into those lower prices, then it affects everybody else. And so it's a precedent-setting decision that you have to make. I just wanted to throw that out for whatever it's worth.
Yeah. Pete Fredericks?
Hi, I'm the chairman of the Twin community. I go back to the community organization agreements. We're hurt by that pretty bad over there in Butte. We stand to lose 20,000 acres of land that's going to come out of the freeze. The communization is going to keep the oil companies from having to advertise that much land. And I want to ask the oil companies how they feel that could be, if they could pull off and do the PAs at least another year, and if they wanna change these things like doing communization or anything else, if they wanna wait a year, at least a year, before like Kodiak has a big lease down there that's gonna expire. And they want to continue communization and have to put the rate of taxes. So they really seem to get a higher rate. It costs a lot of fees, a lot of money. They want to give it to them. They want to give it against the oil companies. The DIA, if they're representing us, they should fight for us, and not let that happen. Because the communitization is not for girls, people ain't gonna get their lease out there good. They want to give all the money they can, and the Bureau should help them do that. And DA, participation, that's the one we're in now, right, Jeff? And that's the one that seems to be working fair. And I can see your point too, Mr. Silk, on the communitization and sharing. You have to manage, so you other people can share it. But now, we could go through that then too, if you could guarantee us 10 to 20 more wells in a year. And if you put that in writing and we'll sign for it, we could do that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, anybody want to answer that from the panel?
We've been meeting quite regularly with Kodiak, with the BLM, and with folks down in Twin Buttes, and you remember our last meeting. We won't go ahead with a communitization type of agreement. After hearing everybody's side of it, we decided that we're going to stay with the unit agreement the way it is right now, with the participating areas, the PAs, the way they are right now, and we're going to make that system work more efficiently and quicker. We have two main problems down there. One is Kodiak's not drilling enough wells, at least to suit the people down there, and I've got to agree with you. They need to get out there and drill more wells. The other thing is, the federal government has not done a good job of paying you people in a timely manner once these wells began to be productive. And we've had meetings as of late with Kodiak and with the BLM's office, Pascal Board in particular, in Billings, and we think we have a solution to that. So, and in fact, I can sit here and tell you right now, I expect your royalties to almost double.
Is that for all?
It's going to work out good for me.
Okay, well, that's good news. Any other questions?
Is that the bottom line?
Yes, Mike.
I forgot your name, John?
Yeah.
Jeff.
No,
Would you write that down and sign it and give it to me? About the doubling of the royalties?
That's one particular owner only.
Oh, okay.
That I specifically looked at his case.
Not all of you, just one.
Just this one guy.
Okay.
I'd have to look at yours, Mr. Cross, and see where you're
Double mine too, though.
see what we can do.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yes.
I'd like ONNR to address Stephen's concerns about, number one, the IT problems that ONNR has, and number two, the mapping issues between one form being on a well basis and the other form being on a lease basis.
Okay. I am not aware that Honor has IT issues. Okay,
Honor's had IT issues from the beginning.
Not any better or any worse than anybody else's. Anytime you go anywhere today, it's let me, hold on, my computer's kind of acting slow. But we actually went through an upgrade about 10 years ago and got us much better prepared to deal with what we're dealing with. We've had a number of conversations with Tulsa. We've had a number of conversations with Fred Fox from the Energy department. And so we are looking at what Steve has brought to us. We are doing some analysis as well. Chairman Hall had some great input at our last partners meeting. So we are taking a look at it to see the findings, to see Steve's findings. I'm not a production reporting expert, so I wouldn't be able to weigh in and tell you in depth what's on that production report or not. At what level, I do understand it's by property, whether it's by lease, by well, or by lease, or by CA. And I haven't done an audit in a number of years, so I'm having a difficult time understanding how our audit process, which has state and tribal auditors as well, has been able to use the data if in fact there's that much difficulty in analyzing it. But that's mine off the top of the head.
Are you guys doing any audits out here right now?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're doing, they include tribal leases as well, and I believe it's about 2 or 3 companies. And audits take time, they're very expensive. It'll be a minimum of probably 3 years before you see the results. An audit is not data analysis. An audit is not data mining. It's getting back to the underpinnings of that transaction, the independent source documents. It's moving way beyond what's on the system between royalties that are reported, production that are reported. You're looking down at run tickets, sales contracts.
You're looking at the source documents to
Yes,
support
absolutely.
the information that's in your computer system is what you're doing.
Right,
Whether you run
absolutely.
tickets, contracts,
Yes.
sales documents, that
Right.
kind of stuff.
Right, and you also have to have an in-depth analysis of valuation as well, because Indian valuation is very strict. It's held to a higher level than federal valuation.
Okay, we got time for 2 more. Thank you guys for that one. Fun.
Yes, I have a very broad question. Part of the role and function of the commission is to do this comprehensive evaluation of trust functions with an interior and provide the secretary with some recommendations. So I would just like an initial reaction from those of you that you're in the front line, you're in a good position. If you were in our position on the commission, what are some things that you would recommend? We're going to be here for about another year and a few months, and we're in the process of scoping out the scope of work for the folks that are going to conduct this evaluation. So it'd be very helpful to hear from your perspective if we were to conduct this overall evaluation of trust management functions. What would we be looking at, and what are some of the things that you would like to see in that type of evaluation?
I would like the commission to look at the 49 steps that are driven by regulations. State of North Dakota takes 10 days to issue a drill. 10 days. Federal government is reported 290 days. That's not right. I think there needs to be some serious examination of regulations, see what can be changed. On those specifics, I'm going to have to yield floor to Jeff here. They've been working with that. I'm fairly new to Fort Worth. I've been here for the last year and May 2011. Jeff.
More money, more money, more money. You saw the size of the staff there, trying to process this amount of work. Hundreds of wells coming in a year. I don't know if you're going to change the National Environmental Policy Act, but there's things that can be done to help streamline. We can also expand the list of things that are categorically excluded from doing an EA, and bring the EA back down to the field level where it belongs in the first place, and out of the lawyer's office and off of laptops. True environmental work is done in the field when they go out there and say, we're not going in that wetland. We're going to go around this bull brush right here that's for wildlife. This is a better place to put a road. This is a better place to put a well pad. Getting the cultural people out there, the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, to make sure we're putting these wells and well pads in the right place. And that's where your streamlining is going to really save the most amount of time. It's not necessarily going through the right-of-way paperwork or the APD paperwork. It's the on-the-ground work and then the documenting through NEPA. That's where we can save time.
The Department of Interior, trust and responsibility is spread out by many agencies. CIA, OST, Honor, VOR, BLM. And in our instance, Chairman and Commissioners, is that we at Fort Berthold have a federal partners quarterly meeting where we address issues that are concerning oil development. The tribe has a day where we have a listening session where they come and express their concerns, and hopefully we can address them and maybe shorten some of the steps via some regulations that may have been overlooked. And so when you decide whatever your final observations are going to be, I mean, maybe consider something along that line, something nationwide, so not just for Fort Berthold, but for all of the country. I know they got that one down in Farmington, FEMA, something like that. I mean, but it just addresses that area, it doesn't address us.
Real helpful, those meetings, those quarterly meetings of getting all the agencies together, like Austin has said. Mike?
Yeah, I have one question, just to clear up confusion on my part. I believe this lady is a commissioner, I'm not sure. Are you a member of the commission? Can you see that? I was under the impression that I was going to speak to a group of commissioners that were going to be in front of me and I could talk to them, but it doesn't seem to be that way. They seem to be in the audience. Someone else said they're all not here.
Three out of 5 are here.
3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the purpose of this meeting, I think, is to gain an understanding on your part from us what we feel about what should be done here in our tribal community relative to oil and gas development. And I'm glad you're here. So, you have how many members to your commission?
5.
5. I was very honored to meet your fellow commissioner, Peter Suzanne. I'm familiar with his history, and I'm glad he's a member of the commission as well. And I'm a lifelong resident of the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation, and I thought it was important for you and the other members of the commission to understand us very well and who we are and our history, which you don't learn from anyone but us. And if you learn from someone else, it's usually wrong. And you learn from the BLA, they have their own version of our history. What I prepared for you and your colleagues is that I'd like you to give to them. And I gave Mr. Zaw one, so there's 5 there, and that's enough.
Thank you.
And what that contains is the history of our reservation since white contact. It covers the 200+ years. It's well written. It was written by me and my 3 children, and I wrote it for them so they could use that in their life and succeeding in institutions like high schools, colleges, workplaces, so they understood. Because they're often asked a question, rhetorical question, by people who live in the country who have never met it before. And they say, what is an Indian reservation like? And so that's the answers in there. It also contains a map of showing the lands we lost and the history of the losses. So this is not the first time something like this is going on. The history repeats itself over and over and over with us since the beginning of that time when we had white contact. So you'll see losses suffered all the way through there up to the present day. So now we seem to be at a point where we can have some influence on that because that's what they told us. They said, come talk to these guys and let them know about what your feelings are. They'll take that into account and then they'll include it in their findings. So that's what I'm giving you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we will be having meetings tomorrow and Friday, And we've opened it up because we want to hear from Robatis, we want to hear from tribal organizations, we want to hear as inclusive as possible. So on each section of our agenda over the next 2 days, there will be an opportunity, and we will be in a formal hearing the next 2 days, and we invite you and welcome you to that session as well. But I will definitely make sure that we get this to each of the commissioners. We'll make this part of our record, and thank you so much for that information.
And included in there is it's in one of them, but you'll find it when you look through them. Good, huh? There's my application for your services that I filled out from your website.
Okay.
And it's 3 pages long. I signed everything up with all the correct information in there. So what your mission states in your office is that
Are you asking for a job, Mike? I'm going to move on if you are.
No, I'm not, but I'm asking for help. A-U-L-T, you spell it out. And,
we got 1 minute left.
And it is the relationship that you have in the mission statement, not with just the tribe, but also with us as individuals. It's equal. It's not like we don't have to come and ask them and ask somebody else and ask the area office and ask all that chain that we lost, and we can ask you directly, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. Thank you, and thank you for engaging. That's a major part of our mission.
Thank you too. I don't know your name.
Yes, go ahead, Jamie.
I didn't say. Fawn, Sharp.
Okay, fine.
Yes, when Fawn asked if we had any sort of general suggestions, we have a couple of things that there's a group of regional managers from all the federal agencies that have come together focusing just particularly on the struggles that we're having with the Bakken development. And some of the things that we came up with, this is with the Forest Service, the Park Service, the BIA, the EPA, a whole bunch of different organizations, and that focuses in our ability to recruit and retain employees. And so there are a number of arenas that we're trying to work on. One of those tied with the per diem rate in the Bakken area, which we just recently did hear that the per diem rate for visitors, when the BIA and the BLM have been bringing in strike teams and people from outside the area to help with work here, at least now they can pay the hotel room rate because that has been increased. But we're also hoping that there would be given some thought would be given to cost of living pay for this area, because if you look at the private sector jobs, I apologize, I've forgotten the lady's name that talked to us about losing BLM employees to industries. You know, there's no doubt that if you're doing petroleum technician work for BLM making $45,000 a year and someone offers you $200,000 a year, it's hard to argue that employees shouldn't look what's best for their families. And so that's a suggestion that we have that's within the power of a larger area of the United States government. It's out of our power to have the cost of living payment for this area, but that would be helpful. And we're also looking at some housing issues. I don't think that's anything for your commission. The rules are there for us. We just have to find the area to make it happen. The tribe has done a better job of that than we have, and we're looking at building a partnership with them. Those are some of the ways that I think could help. We have what's called a pilot office in our Miles City office. It was authorized under the Energy Policy Act of, 2005. That doesn't apply to the North Dakota area, and so it's something that deserves some consideration, in my opinion, as to whether or not something like that would be appropriate here as well, or expanding the authority of that office in Miles City to be able to work on projects on this side of the North Dakota border.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Arnie, you have a comment? Arnie Strasburger?
Hi, yes, thanks everybody for being here, and thanks Chairman for allowing a few words here. Yeah, I was looking up that, and I always am reminded about the time somebody says trust responsibility. 1851, Fort Laramie, hey, great. We used to have 12 million acres. All right, we trusted. Now we're down to underneath million. Now the BIA and all the governments are supposed to regulate us under CFR 25. Now, I do not know it by page and verse and word for word, I guarantee you that. But earlier, I was looking for how we can relieve some of the tensions between roads and what's happening to us. And of course, it says what constitutes an emergency or disaster. Of course, there's locusts, floods, fires, tornadoes, whatever. But if you read to the bottom line, it says, and/or external forces. Now, them external forces are all these oil wells, these trucks and everything coming in. So, I hope if you have any strings to pull, you take that up the ladder. Thank you.
Short and sweet, Arnie. More short than sweet. No. Judy, you have any comments? Okay.
No, I don't, Chairman. I just had a couple little questions. You know, a lot of our people, when there's wells being drilled into their minerals, they aren't notified that they're on a producing well until all of a sudden they might receive some money into their I&M account. Is there a way to make these oil companies notify the mineral owners so that they are aware that they're going to be within a drilling spacing unit? And the other thing is, in Twin Buttes there, I've been getting a lot of negative comments on the unitization. And I think that we need to hear from more people down there, because right now it's only benefiting certain individuals, and it's always in a little tiny thin line right outside that drilling thing that you see where the minerals are affected. And it's not within a CA as we know about it, the 1280, but it's in just a little portion of that, and somebody an inch away from in there, if they were in the CA, they would be receiving income from there. And now they're in the unitization and they don't receive a dime from it. And then it's built well upon well, and some people might be isolated in there. They might never ever get any oil money that everybody else is receiving. So those are the drawbacks against unitization. So I think that our people in Twin Buttes should be made aware of the negative effects of it.
We have addressed the other end of the spectrum also, and that's solving by consolidating the units in a quicker fashion and using a rougher grid, a broader grid than what we had before in the past. Basically, we were using 10-acre pieces bringing into the PA, now we're using 40 acres, and we will consolidate additional wells when they come on almost immediately, basically within 6 months of production. It becomes consolidated, and that brings in more of the people as compared to what we were doing in the past. You're absolutely right. Nothing's perfect. Units, CAs have problems. PAs have problems.
Yes, Austin.
Could I make a short announcement, not oil related?
Yeah.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, when you were growing up, rodeo was kind of a way of life at Fort Berthold here when I was younger. And I tried it a few times, wasn't any good at it, but I did admire an older tribal member. And September 22nd, this man is going to be inducted into the Professional Rodeo Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. Pete Fredericks, please stand up.
That's quite an honor. Thanks for mentioning that, Austin. Pete's Indian name is Charging Eagle, so I think we're going to have a drum down there for Charging Eagle. And of course, if you ever heard of the National Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City, it's beautiful. And are you number 2 or 3 now from the tribe, Pete? I know Joe was in there. So are you be the second one?
I'll be the second one.
Yeah. So that's quite an honor.
Big head in your
I think it'd be the first time there's actually an Indian honor song sung
Yeah.
in that Hall of Fame. So,
Joe is already deceased.
yeah. So you'll have to get your speech polished up.
That's the first time, Joe.
I'm not calling taking place.
Yeah, just lastly, it's a topic on public lands, everyone, and there's always been a concern how Indian lands have been lumped into the public lands category, and so as tribal members are, trying to identify their own lands Alati lands or the tribe's lands, you know, well, in this particular case, the Alati is saying, are we really the owner? You know, if we have to go through and all of the NEPA processes and then the EPA processes, and if we own the land, why does somebody have to comment on our land if we're going to develop oil or water, and somebody from New York or Connecticut gets to hold up, you know, approval of an air permit or approval of an EA or EIS. So that's been around since, I suppose, 1969, since NEPA, you know, was implemented. But I don't know historically where we're digging into it with our attorneys and trying to find, you know, that authority for that and how that was assumed. But like Arnie said, that the treaty says these lands are set aside for the Indians of Fort Berthold. It's not set aside for public, you know, this is our land here. So really that's what that title should say, and there should be a complete separation of that. And I think that something will happen with like NCAI, Fawn and Peterson and, you know, commissioners in terms of the national resolution on this too. I think that there'll be something from the national perspective that comes on separating, you know, tribal lands from public lands category. And then Peterson, you kind of hit on it too. You know, I mean, that's, you know, if it's your lands, then you would have the final say on what you get for a price of coal or price of oil. You would have that final authority. You know, not a solicitor or not a secretary saying this is what you should get paid. You know, and so that's where those problems lie, and it's been around, like I said, since 1969. So. It's kind of an FYI that will come up, commissioners and staff. That's something that it'll continue to evolve with many tribes as they're looking for energy development and trying to reach self-sufficiency with a very valuable resource. Any other final thoughts? If not, we thank you for your time and attendance here, and really appreciate Peterson.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment and then thank you all for taking the time to speak with us as a commissioner here. I wanted to also tell you a little about one of your tribesmen that I had a great opportunity to work with. And I was just walking down the hallway and I saw his picture. Carl Whitman Jr.
Oh, yeah.
And I want you to know that Carl Whitman used to work at Arizona State University when I was a graduate student there. And he came down to help with the Peace Corps program as an advisor. And then he recruited me to the program to try to help Peace Corps and then with the Vista Volunteer Program. And I got to know him, his wife and his family. And then he introduced me to another guy that I saw in the hallway, his picture there, Nathan Little Soldier.
Oh, yeah.
And I got acquainted with him, and I had a lot of respect for both of those people because I was in the process of trying to figure out what I'm going to do. My career and my life was right in front of me, and they greatly influenced what I did. And today, I didn't know that I was sitting here by the famous Pete, repeat and repeat sitting here. It's a great honor to meet in the manner in which we did. Just a piece of advice. You're so lucky as a tribe, as Indian people. A great spirit placed you here. And then you had all these tough times throughout these years. And then one day deciding that your land is floating on oil. And it's a great thing and something that we all wish for everywhere where Indian people live. But there's also a test to our character. and how all of that commodity that the Great Spirit was willing to bless you with, how it turns out at the end. And despite what the federal government did to you, you had the fortune of placing you in a wonderful, beautiful land with all these commodities inside the earth. They did the same thing to us, the Great Spirit. Because Navajo, I guess when you just look at Navajo way back then, they had no water, desolate place out there, no food, nothing. They felt. And so they put us back over there. And later on, 100 years, or maybe over 100 years later, they found out oil, uranium, gas, high-grade coal, water, timbers, all of those resources, natural resources. That's where they put us back on. So in many ways, we had the last laugh. So did you. And just a word of caution after listening to all of the folks that spoke here. And that is that we all have to learn from each other. And then somebody in the back says, history always repeats itself. And in our situation, we were so happy that both the Navajo and the Hopi were blessed with the coal where our land is now situated and located. And that's a blessing. When all these coal companies that came in wanting to develop like the way you're doing with oil here, so many oil companies, you're having to develop almost all the things that they need overnight. And the same thing happened to Navajo, except one thing that we never really fully guarded against was all of the bad things that were happening that we didn't know about. I think one of your consultants said something about they have to readjust all the things that they have to do. They have to use modern technologies to make sure that the right amount of gallons, so many gallons of oil goes off your land. And they're trying to put all the safeguards in place so that at the end, any kind of cheating doesn't go on by the oil companies. That happened to us on the Navajo with coal, because we did everything we can, I guess, back then in the early 1950s. And I don't know if any of you were around back then, 1940s. And what happened was that they weighed the coal at night that went off the reservation. But we were all asleep. And years later, they found out that the scale that they were using to weigh the tonnage of coal that went off the reservation wasn't right during the day as it was at night. And they weren't the same thing. And so we lost all of that good commodity that we were blessed with. And you had to really, really safeguard against those kinds of things. And when we drove around today, I saw all these oil, and I kept on wondering about that, how much the tribe is doing to protect its resources. And it's something that I think it's a challenge to all of us. Not only the oil companies, but within the tribe, your own tribal members. Whatever it is that the wrong that they may want to commit also passes on to the tribal members. So honesty and having integrity and being truthful with people, all of that is necessary. And I just wanted to caution you against those kinds of things, because I, for one, as a grandfather, when I visit these kinds of things that are happening, what I saw today, several years down the road, I don't want to read about all of the terrible things that are happening. So many of our tribal members are going to jail. I think as Indian people, we just really, really have to safeguard against that. Navajo is being hurt by that right now, and I don't like to see it. Nobody wants to read about it, and nobody wants to see those on television. So I just wanted to say that. Otherwise, have a good luck, and thank you for your hospitality. Yeah.
Thank you, Pete. Very wise words from the tribal leader. Thank you all very much for attending, and we appreciate, thank all the departments for the tours and the hosting. We'll see the commissioner and staff in Bismarck tomorrow. Have a good trip.
Getting out of here.